Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires is Joe, draining sinuses writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Oh, no, it's not sinuses. It's just, I was going to talk about it in my freaking, but I just thought it'd be fun to catch a second summer cold. I mean, why do I even bother, staying healthy and washing my hands and wearing my mask? I mean, I don't do drugs. I don't drink at my age. I mean, I can get the same effects by standing up too fast. And it's just not even worth it. I should just stay. I should be like you, just stay in the basement and eschew contact with humanoid mortals.
You know
but
why?
Unlike you, I don't have a job that lets me do that.
Oh, I have to be around people, but and usually they're like toddlers. In that, when you work at a group home, because the clients go to their workplaces, which is basically just, they have a day program they go to. It's like toddlers in that if there's an illness going around, they're going to bring it home to you. I just always look at people as festering bags of disease.
You don't look at people.
What has come out of COVID for me. I'm not going to say I'm a germaphobe, but boy, I just see people as illness with shoes. So I don't touch people if I don't have to. I wear a mask even now, and you should be wearing a mask now because we're getting a more we're starting to get another bad strain of COVID. COVID has spent the last year or so learning how to spread faster, and now it's getting to where it makes you super sick again. Yeah. So enjoy that.
Like I used to tell people back when we were, the people that were dumb and said, "Oh, it's no worse than the flu." It's like, well, yeah, but the Spanish flu, the last real pandemic we had, lasted into the 1920s. It was until like 1923 before it kind of faded away. We're like, oh man, 1917, it killed all these people. Yeah, well, it hung around. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
We're here to talk about the draft.
Ooh, it's cold right across my neck. Ugh.
Well, good for you because it's 87 degrees outside. No, we're here. It is our monthly foray into previews.
And I'm going to bet it's going to be short because I didn't see jack end or shit.
I saw stuff, but we should tell people the ground rules.
Okay, first off, I did not get the DC or Marvel supplements with this catalog. So I ended up going to, I wrote it down even. I went to, whatever. Oh, Game Radar. Game Radar. And I used their website, mainly because some of the other ones, I want a list and description of what's coming out. But some of them end up putting like massive blobs of art. So it's like I want to scroll down through the 562 Batman titles that DC is offering this month. And of that, I have to go through 4 to 5 pages of art of said titles. And so I'm basically going through over like 27,000 pages just to get the list. You wonder why an old fart like me just gets cranky. But for some reason, no one in town that I talked with, and believe me, I did a lot of geeking in the last couple of weeks, seemed to have the Marvel or the DC supplements. Now, I know you went out because you didn't get previews in the normal monthly box, but were you able to find the supplements?
The Marvel previews was in my box. I get my preview box tomorrow. And the box after that, which is 2 weeks from now, will have my DC previews in it. So,
and by that time, who cares? It's already we'll be going on to the next month.
And it's there's something not right.
Yeah. I think Marvel and DC are just making. And when we get to Marvel and DC, we'll talk. But for now, go ahead, grab your previews. We're doing number 406, July 22nd for books, allegedly, shipping in September after the summer's over and the kids are back in school. So this is kind of interactive, and I'll throw it out to my bud Cory because he will take us through. I mean, basically just one big ad. It's like a big Sears catalog for you old farts, and they start out right away on the covers and the spines. They're pushing all sorts of stuff here.
The other thing is that we do not go through everything we are going to buy.
Oh, hell no.
Because that would be a 5-hour podcast.
Yeah, and this is mostly just things that catch our eye, that we think looks cool. In some cases, there might be things we're just pointing out. Matter of fact, I'll take you right here on page 1. The only thing from Boom I'm interested in, it's right on the cover there. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 100, which is interesting because not a lot of any titles tend to make it to triple digits anymore. So that in and of itself, I imagine they have, let's see, what page is it on? They probably have a bunch of variant covers and things like that. So if you got a friend who likes Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, this might be something to point out for them. By the way, it's on page 98 in the catalog. And yeah, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different covers. Nobody announced for the blank sketch cover in terms of artists. It's a little pricey, $9.99 and $11.99 for the foil variants. Kudos to you, Boom and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Also on the comic side cover is the new Donny Cates Ryan Stegman book, Vanish. These are the people who did the big Venom run that concluded at Marvel a little bit ago. Donny Cates is also currently writing Thor and Hulk. So this is their new creator-owned stuff. But on the spine, what was it? 2 years ago, Rebellion, who publishes 2000 AD, announced they were going to do a 6-issue miniseries, The Best of 2000 AD, as kind of an introduction to 2000 AD for American consumers. It would be a 6-issue miniseries and then collected in a book. But then the pandemic hit and they never put it out. So now instead there will be 6 trade paperbacks. That will be The Best of 2000 AD. So they're hyping it on the spine. And I wonder if anybody even looks on the spine but me. You know, when I think spine, I think, somebody's going to be getting one of those Arn Anderson spine busters. Putting the spine on the pine.
I kind of look at it, but it also didn't. Again, it didn't draw me in.
They also,
like, oh my gosh.
They moved books around a little bit too, I noticed. And we'll discuss that as we move forward.
Oh, yeah.
But we start, as they always start, with Image. I like what Image does in that their opening section, they start with their new number 1s. Then they have their trade paperbacks. And then they have their ongoing series, which makes it easy to see, okay, what are the new things? What are the trades? And then the ongoing stuff we kind of skip over because we already just cross off. Yep, I get this. I get
and
this.
They give 3 full-size pages of art, which I absolutely love because, again, I'm getting older. It's getting harder to see it. It's nice to have a preview, but if you're going to make a postage size stamp, it's not even worth it. There are some more forward-thinking companies. I don't know if we'll talk to any of them. A Blaze, I think, sometimes does it where they put the little QRC code that you can actually download it onto your phone or whatever, which is kind of cool. But I'm easy this month. I only got one thing from Image that caught my eye, and I don't know if I'm going to buy it or wait for the inevitable trade, but on page 36, Creepshow number 1, the worldwide phenomena based on the hit Shudder TV series, comes to life in a star-studded 5-issue anthology series that will scare you to death. Will it? I don't know, but Creepshow to me is, also, was it a magazine? I know it was a couple movies, but was it
All right,
based on a magazine?
No, they did 2 movies, and it
Okay.
was Stephen King teaming up with George Romero to kind of make short stories that showed their love of EC Comics. And then they did a comic adaptation graphic novel of the first movie, which had a cover by Bernie Wrightson. And then Shudder has started a TV series. Neither Stephen King nor George Romero had anything to do with it. It's being put together by Greg Nicotero, who's the person who does, he's kind of the big high muckety muck on The Walking Dead. And now they're doing a comic. These will be unique stories. They will not be adaptations of the TV episodes.
Wasn't there a TV show, Creepshow?
No, it was Tales from the Dark Side.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking.
Ran by George Romero back in the 90s. There were a bunch of those horror anthology syndicated shows. There was Freddy's Nightmares, there was Friday the 13th, and I think there might have been 1 or 2 more. They even did a revival of Twilight Zone back then that Harlan Ellison was part of for a cup of coffee. Gosh, they pissed him off and he quit. How could that happen?
I'm shocked. So
the new Creepshow, I like it. I don't love it. The stories are half hour long. They do go for the horror twist ending. They don't have that EC love because it's pretty clear. Romero and King grew up with EC Comics. Greg Nicotero is basing his stuff on their stuff rather than basing it on EC Comics. And it's more kind of a monster anthology series rather than an EC-inspired anthology series. I'm picking this up too, but I am going to wait for the trade paperback.
Yep. And that's it for me for Image. I was easy this month.
Well, there is, let's see here. There were some trade paperbacks I wanted to point out as I flip. There is a new Reckless book called Follow Me Down. Reckless is the line of hardcovers by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. This is the 5th book in the series. In the wake of the 1989 earthquake, Ethan takes a trip to San Francisco to search for a missing woman, but almost immediately he finds himself going down a path of darkness and murder in a case unlike anything he's faced before. Yeah, it's Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. I buy everything they do. They are one of my favorite creative teams. We get a good 4-page preview of it. Looks just as good as everything else they do. If you have not picked up their stuff, you should do so. You should start with either Criminal or over at DC, I believe they're going to be reprinting the book that first paired them together, which is Sleeper, which, believe it or not, was set in the Wildstorm universe about a superhero good guy who is embedded with criminals on deep cover. And his elaborate, the story for him to go into deep cover is that he turned against, basically he turned rogue. But his handler dies. And no one else, and his handler was the only one who knew that he was in deep cover because they were scared that the criminals had informants inside the law enforcement organization they were a part of. So now he's trapped. Great series. It ran for 24 issues. I think they're putting it out as 1 book. But if they're just going to put it out as 2, it'll be good too as well. Monstrous has another hardcover, and it's a series by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. I pick it up as these hardcovers because they're beautiful. The book 1, reprinted volumes 1 through 3 of the series. This reprints volumes 4 through 6. And you'll also see that volume 7 is available as a trade paperback.
Yeah, that's how I pick it up.
The books that they highlight are their Eisner Award nominees. The Eisner is pretty much the Academy Awards for comics. And they list all the books that are nominees this year, such as Department of Truth.
What page is that on?
That is
Remember,
on.
we gotta get page numbers because this is a interactive show for those of you with your previews.
It is on page 67. They have the Department of Truth, which if you're not reading it, you need to read that.
I get that as trades.
The Good Asian.
Have not picked that up yet.
Stray Dogs, Radiant Black, Ultra Mega, and a book that Joe has been recommending since it came out, The Scumbag.
Oh, yeah. I will point out on page 44, for those of you like me who buy Saga in the trades, volume 10 is on page 44. And, of course, you can get all the other ones as well.
And on the next page, Monstrous is there, Destroy All Monsters is there, Adventure Man by Matt Fraction and Terry Dodson, which I absolutely adore. It is kind of a what if pulp heroes were around now. Terry Dodson's art is beautiful. His art reminds me so much of Frank Cho, it's not even funny. And then The Undiscovered Country, which is by Scott Snyder, Charles Soule, and Giuseppe Camicoli, which is in the future. The U.S. has gone completely off the grid. No one knows what happened to it after a civil war. There are no signals out. There are no radio signals. No people leave. Nothing. So some really good books there. If you haven't picked them up, good group of nominations. Now, next was surprising. Next is usually Dark Horse. Now, Dark Horse started in this world as the first, and then Image moved into their place, and they moved into second place. Now, Boom has moved into second place. And from what I have read, this is because Boom is now outselling Dark Horse. So, sorry, Dark Horse. But Dark Horse does actually have better sales outside the comic shop world because of the books that they publish for video game art are really what's sustaining them. But Boom, Joe already talked about the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Outside of that and again, I'm not picking it up. I'm just pointing it out. And is there anything else, Boom, that you're picking up, Cory?
No, but there's something I want to point out. There is a Firefly Return to Earth that was deluxe edition. $75, 112 pages. It collects the backup stories in the Firefly comic. $75 for 112 pages. I'm not that big a fan of anything to pay that. First, if I'm only going to get 100 and some pages for $75, they need to come to my house, deliver it by hand, and then write their names on it in front of me. No, that's too much. That's just crazy talk. Dark Horse.
All right. Right on page 118, Masquerade. One written by Kevin Smith. I didn't think he would last. And Andy McElfresh. Felicia Dance is hiding in plain sight. The provocative social media star and shock TV sensation has one of the most recognizable faces in the world, so she can't capture and kill the butchers who murdered her little brother, experimented on Felicia like a lab rat when she was a child. Not unless she looks like someone else. The face of justice is reshaped forever in Masquerade, an exciting new vigilante comic series from the aforementioned creators. Again, I like the 4-issue series. I don't feel like I'm committing for the long haul, but I guess this is a beginning of Kevin Smith's Secret Stash Press at Dark Horse. So we'll see what other interesting things he comes up with. So I'm on board for the first series. It sounds interesting enough.
Now, Joe, why am I not going to buy this first issue?
Because you'll probably buy, well, no, I was going to say you'll probably buy the trade because you don't want to worry that Kevin Smith might lose interest and only do 3 issues and we'll never see issue 4.
Kind of like you did with Batman the Widening Greer, who did 6 out of 12 issues and then nothing. Or what the Daredevil father, and he did 1 issue. Never ever did any more.
Never last.
There was that Spider-Man, The Evil That Men Do, that did 2 issues and then waited like 6-7 years for him to finish it. He has a bad track record. I'm buying it as a trade. Now, somebody who's a little smarter when it comes to things like that is David Duchovny. You know why that is?
Mm-hmm. Well, I heard it's this month at Dark Horse on page 123 is his comic debut.
And not only that, it's the whole thing is in 1 book. We're not going to have to wait for his issues, et cetera, But he is doing, David Duchovny is from The X-Files and Californication, and that's really about all I know him from, is doing a book called Kepler. When the Badim benevolent space gods return to Kepler, a planet where
Homo sapiens
went
again
extinct.
Badly placed hyphens. Dark Horse. Yeah. Do something about that.
I keep looking and it's like, what? And Homo sapiens is 2 words.
Yeah.
Anyway, and all other hominid species thrived. Their arrival threatens to plunge the world into chaos. West, a 16-year-old Neanderthal girl, is thrust into conflict, and her efforts, unique because of her mixed hominid heritage, also changed her life but revealed the merciless ambition and identity of the gods themselves. The art looks okay, but I like David Duchovny. Every interview I've seen with him, he seems like an intelligent guy. I also know that he contributed ideas on X-Files at times, so it's not like he never made up any stories. I'm going to give this a try, and maybe he'll do more. And let's see, Joe, did you have anything else?
Let's see, on page 140, The Panic trade paperback. 10 strangers trapped beneath the Hudson River are forced to depend on their fellow commuters in order to survive an apocalyptic event. Those left must fight their way through more than rubble to make it to safety. But the darkness is closing in, and with it, their own individual fears and paranoia. There'll be a long road to the end of the tunnel. That is, if they don't kill each other before they get there. And this is collecting The Panic from the Comixology Originals digital series in print for the first time. Dark Horse does a lot of these, and I tend to point them out. You know, like I said, I read through them. Whatever catches my attention, looks interesting. This one definitely something I'll probably pick up.
There's one I'm going to point out to not buy.
Uh-oh.
And it's rare that I do this, but it is one of the Brian Michael Bendis books. It is Brilliant by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley. The first creator-owned book by Bendis and Bagley tells the story of a handful of college-age geniuses who challenge each other to solve the mystery of superpowers. It collects all the issues that have been done. This book ended on a cliffhanger over a decade ago. Picking this book up, and I liked it. I really liked it, but it's an exercise in frustration because it basically is like reading the first issue of a 12-issue miniseries. It sets things up and then done, gone, never to be heard from again. On the other hand, the book Super Spy by Matt Kent is getting a deluxe hardcover edition. This is a fantastic book. It is a meta-spy thriller exploring the geography of espionage through interconnected short stories that can be read consecutively and out of order. Matt Kent does a lot of superhero stuff. He also does a lot of non-superhero stuff. The book he's doing for your Dark Horse right now is Mind Management. This was a fantastic, fantastic book that he wrote and drew. It's very artsy. It's very experimental. But if you give yourself over to it, it is a fantastic spy story that feels bigger than just a spy story. The deluxe edition also collects Super Spy: The Lost Dossier, a secret spy activity book for grown-ups, deleted scenes, sketches, spy stories, standalone stories, sketchbook pages, 3D comics, spy gadget designs, keys to unlock secret codes hidden throughout the original book, toys and stories for you to cut out and assemble. It's just, Matt Kent is really playing with the form of comics. I enjoyed a lot. We have an EC reprint that I cannot recommend enough. On page 142, Incredible Science Fiction. EC always said that they were proudest of their science fiction books, which were weird science and weird fantasy. They did not sell all that well, so they did combine them into one. It was originally called Incredible Science Fantasy. They then changed it to Incredible Science Fiction. These are the last issues. Drawn by Bernie Krigstein, Joe Orlando, Jack Davis, Al Williamson, Marie Severin. It also has the last EC story ever, and the story that William Gaines went to war with the Comics Code over. And sometime, Joe, do you want me to tell that story now or save it for another episode?
I would say if it's short, go for it.
All right. There was a story called Judgment Day, where an American astronaut lands on another planet to see if this planet is ready to join the Galactic Federation. And as he is there, he realizes that they still have racism. And when he points it out, the people go, well, what do you mean? The people with the different color skin are obviously inferior. You know, they work poor jobs. They do this, they do this, they do this. And they just don't see that they're the ones doing that. And he says, sorry, we'll come back late. We'll come back in however many years to see if you're ready to join. He gets in the spaceship, and the captions talk about how Earth used to be like that, but they've gone beyond it. He takes off his helmet, and he's got black skin, and the caption is about how the beads of sweat on his forehead look like stars in the dark sky. Sounds like, a very preachy EC story. One of the preachies. Well, the Comics Code said, sorry, you can't have a black man in the last panel.
Huh.
And William Gaines said, that's the whole point of the story. And we're going to run it whether you like it or not. The Comics Code said, all right, but you have to get rid of the sweat on his forehead. William Gaines then said, look, I'm going to print it. And if you try to stop me, I'm going to sue you, and I will spend every last dollar suing you and destroying the Comics Code. And finally, they just let him print it, knowing it was his last comic book. But kind of a famous story in that it was the last EC story. And the other thing is, it wasn't even supposed to run in that book. It was supposed to run in a later book, but one of the artists had been late delivering their story, so that was an inventory story that they ran from the pre-code days. So there you go.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like that. I like the science fiction books that EC did. They were very much on the twist ending. They got in a little trouble with Ray Bradbury, in that they were using some Ray Bradbury plots, and then he sent them a letter saying, I see you used the plot for this story and didn't send me a check for $50. So they very quickly wrote him a check and then asked if they could adapt other stories, and he said sure.
Yeah.
Next up is Dynamite.
No. I got one more for Dark Horse.
Oh.
On page 145, another hardcover, Fragmentation. Mark Guggenheim, Benny Lobel. When pieces of history, some from the world's most traumatic and horrible events, start appearing as fragments of time invading our world, it threatens all of human existence. One family discovers that their personal tragedy is at the center of everything, making them the only people who can help put an end to the fragmentations. It's an original graphic novel, hardcover, 88 pages for $25, but I don't know. I'm a sucker for time travel, and this one sounds interesting, time invading. So I'm going to go for that.
For me, I looked at it and I was interested, but I'm going to wait for the paperback because, again, $25 for 88 pages, it's just not a good. I'm trying to think of the best way to put this.
Deal.
It's not a good time per dollar. Because 88 pages in modern comics, I will probably read that in a half hour to 45 minutes. I don't want to pay $25 for less than an hour of reading.
Yeah.
And it's weird that I do that math in my head. I don't know if everybody else does that. But there are times when I look at a book, like the fantasy novels that I'm reading now, it's like, oh, cool. This one's 500 and some pages for only $3.99. I'll get a few good days out of that.
It's weird, Corey. Just go with that.
Okay.
But on Dynamite, one thing to point out right away on page 156, a new Vampirella series, Vampirella Mind Warp. You can check it out there. You can see the different variant covers. And more importantly, on page 158, you get an interview with the creators of the series. Which is something I really think Dynamite does a great job. Even on the next page, I'm not recommending it, but it's called the Ninjets. Go on to the next page. There's an interview with the writer. So you get a good idea of what's going on, what they're trying to achieve. Before I start getting into all the fun stuff with Dynamite, is there anything else, Corey, you're interested in?
Go to page 165.
All right.
Stan Lee's Alliances, Orphans, hardcover. Now, a lot of the stuff that Stan Lee packaged over the years after he left Marvel was of, let's just say, dubious quality. However, this has art by Bill Sienkiewicz. I am buying it because it has art by Bill Sienkiewicz. They could put written by Vince Colletta on this, and I would buy it because the art is by Bill Sienkiewicz. Now, he is doing the prologue and someone else is doing the rest of the story, but if Bill Sienkiewicz gives enough of a damn to do art for it, he is at a point in his life where he doesn't have to do anything to pay the rent. He does stuff because he wants to. So, I am picking this up because he's doing it.
Cool.
And Joe, you said you had more Dynamite stuff?
Well, to me, this is the fun stuff, and I'll talk a little bit more. Well, I'll tell you what gets me going on this. I've been geeking pretty hard the last couple weeks. I'll actually talk about it when we get to Freaking and Geeking. I virtually see none of these items I'm about to mention at any of the comic stores I go to, which is really, to me, bizarre, because when I had Hot Comics, these were the things that set my store apart from everybody else, and I sold a crap ton of these things. Granted, Dynamite wasn't around, or if they were, they weren't. I don't know if they were around or not, come to think of it. But Chaos Comics at the time was, and they had shot glasses, they had mugs, they had pins and action figures. I sold a ton of these things, and I just love looking at this stuff from Dynamite. It starts on page 179. All Red Sonja items offered again. A couple pint glasses, tarot sets, which I've actually bought and sold on the eBays. There's a board game. There's some pins. Flip it over on the next page, 180. You get a couple of these high-end collectible books that were offered to the direct market for the first time, which means they're probably available somewhere else. They're pricey. I mean, there's Bill Tushy's Miss Fury lithograph prints. It's $100. Above that, Gail Simone, Walter Giovanni, Red Sonja special line art cover edition, $50. A metal cover of Army Darkness 1979 number 3. Betty Page and the Bigfoot Bandits photo cover special edition. So pricey, high-end books, but they're kind of neat. Next to it, on the next page, something I'm real tempted to get. George Prez Storyteller 35th Anniversary Edition hardcover. I say tempted because I did order the signed one, never got it. I'm not bitter. Beneath it, some other fun things that I just absolutely love. There's a Elvira coin, some enamel pins from the Red Sonja, Vampirella, Betty, and Veronica miniseries, a Vampirella tarot deck, Elvira Ouija board. I mean, I don't see these things anywhere in any comic store in the Twin Cities. I don't recall seeing any of these when I traveled. And again, this is almost getting a decade old. But I don't know why comic shops don't carry stuff like this. Maybe it's a little tight. Maybe it was just I lucked out. I made it a deal to get these things in and properly display them. I had a jeweler showcase, you know, the one where you press the button and the trays move around so you can see things. And I just sold so many weird items. I sold Zippos. I sold lithographs. I sold, I don't know. I'm just waxing nostalgia, but these are the type of things that I absolutely love, and it shocks me that I don't see them. And so I point them on it because ideally, if you go in there and you might see something, hey, that Elvira Mistress of the Dark spectral switchboard, it's a Ouija board, looks pretty cool. Go to your local comic store and order it. Or if you didn't pick up a copy,
Ouija board because Ouija is owned by Parker Brothers.
You can call it what you want, but it's a Ouija board. And if you want it, if you're trying to summon the spirit of George Prez and you don't feel like buying the 35th Anniversary Edition hardcover, he might come back for Elvira. I don't know. So, but I'll point these out because I think they're fun. And when I'm done with everything, I look at my budget, and then I don't have the Elvira $50. I may end up buying that because I do have some of the other ones behind me. And that's
I can tell you why that stuff did better at your store. There are a couple of reasons. One, you, unlike a lot of the other comic shops at the time, you were big into toys. And you could you were known for toys, and this stuff, in a lot of ways, is thought of as, quote, toys, unquote. So you drew the toy collectors. And the toy collectors would also buy stuff like this. The other thing that you had that most comic shops don't, and I don't think any of the comic shops in the Twin Cities have this anymore. You had high foot traffic. You were on a street that a lot of people walked down. And you had interesting window displays, not just for comics, but for other stuff. So you would get people who would come in who didn't drive there from somewhere else. They were just walking down the street and saw it and went, oh, cool. You had a model store next to you, and a lot of those customers would come over and buy from you as well. So you kind of had this weird synergy going that I don't think any other shop in the Twin Cities could have. Even when you go to Hot Comics and Collectibles now, I went to the Hot Comics in Minneapolis. The toys are off in another room, and they don't have half the toys you would have had, and they don't have a whole lot of complete toy lines and stuff. They have gotten away from toys and moved toward back issue comics. Now, I haven't been to the Richfield Hot Comics in about a year, but they were kind of the same way. Okay, all the toys are over here. It's not like in your shop where toys were over half the store. So it's a different clientele that you draw in.
It would be kind of interesting now because even I'm glad, well, that I don't buy toy lines. As we talked about last episode, I do look at toys. and probably more than I actually think about. But I have to get this complete line of toys. And so many of the guys that I see when I'm talking online, they're just despondent because they can't go to Target. They can't go to Walmart and be assured of getting complete lines, which is why you see a Minnesota Toy Posse pop up where they work to try to help each other to get these toy lines. Me, if I get something, it's because I think it's cool, or I just want to, like the Orange Cassidy figure. Come on, that's cool. Even if you aren't a pro wrestling fan, it's still pretty cool. Does he have his hands in his pocket? Well, close to his pocket, anyways. So,
well, let's hope.
But we'll talk about more toys a little bit later in the show. Right now, is it time for DC?
It's time for DC Comics.
I will be quick because there's only 3 things on DC that I thought of interest, and I'm trying to find it.
It's
number
the first
one
thing.
Well,
it's
the problem
on page
is
2.
The problem is I'm not on page 2. I'm on Games Radar, and of course the first things they do is like the 652 Batman titles. I will mention one thing right off the bat that's really cool. Action Comics #1 Facsimile Edition. I have reprints of Action #1, but I think it's cool that they're doing a facsimile edition, which is really sweet. If you got, Cory, go ahead, jump in if you want to do something, because I'm still trying to find what I'm looking for here.
On page 2, Batman vs. Robin #1, written by Mark Waid, art by Mahmoud Asrar, spinning out of the events of Batman Superman World's Finest in Shadow War, father and son will do battle in one of the most single earth-shattering tales ever told. Deep in the heart of Lazarus Island. The demonic legacy of the Al Ghul family line has at last been freed, and the devil Nezra is out for blood to reclaim his total domination over planet Earth. Nezra has supercharged magic. Anyone who dares to use it is overcome by a demonic evil that supercharges their abilities to a dangerous, unpredictable, and in some cases deadly level. Legendary writer Mark Waid helms the next epic saga in Batman history, while superstar artist Mahmoud Asrar makes his triumphant return to DC. It's Mark Waid. It's Mark Waid. I'm buying it.
You had me at Mark Waid. The other one item I want to point out that's new, DC Horror presents Sergeant Rock versus the Army of the Dead. Written by Bruce Campbell. Art by Eduardo Risso. Berlin, 1944. The Nazis are besieged on all fronts by the Allied forces. Defeat is inevitable, but Hitler and his team of evil scientists attempt a last-ditch effort that may turn the tide of the war and rewrite history itself. A serum that resurrects their dead soldiers stronger than they were in life, sends them back into the battlefield. Now Sergeant Frank Rock and Easy Company have been dispatched to enemy territory to face off against the strangest, most horrific enemies they've ever encountered. Nazi zombies. Yeah, you had me at written by Bruce Campbell. That's all I need to know. And
you had me at Nazi zombies.
He doesn't need a co-writer because he's written his own books. He knows how to write comics. So those are the top 3 things I would recommend: the Action Facsimile, Batman and Robin #1, and the DC Horror Presents Sergeant Rock vs. Army of Dead. One thing I will point out, if you're following along comic series with Nice House on the Lake, number 10 is being solicited this month. Number 9 was solicited back in March. So you're not missing anything. It's just been a while because I had to go back and make sure I didn't double order it. Any other comics?
Oh, yeah. On page 6, we have the Harley Quinn 30th anniversary special. It's another of those 100-page, $10 books, bunch of short stories for Harley Quinn, with a whole bunch of special covers Let's see, there's a J. Scott Campbell cover, there's a Terry Dodson cover, there's a Bruce Timm cover, there's a Adam Hughes and Amanda Connors, Amanda Hug and Kiss. There is a first issue Tim Drake Robin, written by Megan Fitzmartin, drawn by Riley Rossmo. I like the Tim Drake Robin. He's gotten sort of the short shift over the last decade or so, but he did get a Pride special and a one-shot, and I enjoyed both of those. I like the Tim Drake Robin because he's the Robin who's not a psycho. And usually they have him more as kind of a teenage superhero. I think they're going to be having him kind of in his early 20s from this point. But it's a character I like, and I'm actually kind of surprised it took them this long to bring him back. Oh, and a whole bunch of extra covers for him too. Let's see here. I did not get this, so it's all online, so I'm having to... All right, when we get to books, Cliff Chang's Catwoman Lonely City, which was a 4-issue miniseries in the Black Label line, is getting a hardcover. That's one where, okay, I like that. I'll wait for it to be collected into a book. We also have a DC poster portfolio for George Perez. These are they're about a 1.5 by a foot, and they are posters and covers that George Perez did. It's 42 pages. It's $24.99. I'm picking this up because George Perez's stuff was so good. It's a poster book. It's not something you're going to read, but it's something you're going to look at. George Perez's art was always so fantastic to look at, especially in this bigger format. If I had my druthers, Joe.
Your druthers?
Yeah. I'd rather do this than do that. That's an old, it's from Lil Abner, but where I grew up, pretty much all the stuff in Lil Abner was just how we talked. If I had my druthers, I'd like to see one of those 2-foot tall books of George Perez's Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be nice. That'd be sweet.
I'd go for that. I am scoring my only omnibus of this month, Books of Magic Omnibus Volume 3.
Me too.
Yeah. Does it say how many pages they are? Because those other two are amazingly huge.
Let me get to it here. It is 1,200 pages.
Wow.
This is after, because the first two reprint the first Books of Magic miniseries, which introduced Tim Hunter, and then the 75-issue series. This is the second series, so it is the Trenchcoat Brigade, Names of Magic, Hunter, The Age of Magic 1 through 25, and Books of Magic, Life During Wartime 1 through 15, by Dylan Hollick, Cy Spencer, John Nay Reber, art by Richard Case, and Dean Armstrong, and others. But this is the second attempt they did to kind of do a Tim Hunter series. I did not like it as much as I liked the original Books of Magic. It's good, but the original Books of Magic was fantastic. They are also reprinting Grayson the Super Spy Omnibus, which was one of the first books by Tom King. He and Tim Seeley co-wrote it. To heroes, villains, and ordinary citizens of Earth, Dick Grayson is dead, but death is the perfect cover story for the agent of Spiral. Now, as Batman's man on the inside, Dick must learn Spiral's secrets as they strive to uncover the secret identity of every superhero on the planet. This is fantastic. Again, it was one of Tom King's first comics, as he came from both being a spy. He worked at the CIA over in Iraq, and a novelist. So this was kind of him learning how to do comics and bringing the stuff he had learned in his previous job And that is it. They really only have very few trade paperbacks and hardcovers again. DC, will you never learn?
Marvel sucked this month because they're resoliciting 90% of the shit they canceled last month. I got nothing to talk about. The only two things I'll point out, Amazing Spider-Man #1 Facsimile Edition, Amazing Spider-Man Annual 1 Facsimile Edition. That's it. There's nothing else I got to talk about in Marvel. I have no idea what you're going to talk about, Cory, but I'm going to sit back and listen.
Well, for the most part, comic-wise, it's all the same stuff. They have very few new books coming out, although there's one that I'm going to point out. Again, it's a one-shot, so I can't wait for a trade. Joe, can you go to page 48? Of course not. You're looking at it online.
I'm online.
Can you look at Star Wars Visions?
I can. Maybe. I think I dropped.
That
Go
is.
ahead. Talk, let me find it here because
That is Takeshi Ozaki, who's the creator of Afro Samurai, is continuing the storytelling from the acclaimed Star Wars Visions episode The Duel, featuring the Ronin. This is the mythology of Star Wars infused with the elements of feudal Japan. They have a couple pages of art and his character designs, and oh my God, is this beautiful. So I have to pick this up. This looks gorgeous. And it's very rare that I pick up an individual one issue of a comic unless it's, going to be one of those big 100-pagers. But for me, it's all the actions in the back. We've got some fun omnibuses, including the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl Omnibus, which reprints the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl issues 1 through 8. Then the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl issues 1 through 50. The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl beats up the Marvel Universe. The issue of Howard the Duck, which crossed over with Squirrel Girl. Her story from A Year of Marvels, and her story from the Not Brand Ach continuation issue they did back in 2017. I love Squirrel Girl. Now, to make this perfect, they should reprint the original Squirrel Girl story by Will Murray and Steve Ditko, but they haven't. My heart, she is a-breaking. On the next page is Captain America by Nick Spencer Omnibus Volume 1. This is the story that caused everybody to completely lose their minds because they hadn't read Captain America in a few years. This is where Captain America has been replaced and is now working for the Sons of the Serpent and is an agent of Hydra. And for everybody who said, Cap would never do that, I can't tell you how many stories Stan Lee did where Captain America and the Red Skull switched places, or the Red Skull brainwashed Captain America. And they did it in the 40s. They did it in the 50s where Captain America was brainwashed into becoming a commie, and on and on and on. This is just a modern, longer version of that. And it was set up in a previous story that, again, nobody read. I liked it. I like the whole idea of the hero you trust more than any other is secretly a villain. I really wish it would have gone longer, because that idea is something that would be so much fun to play with. It's kind of like when after, what was it? It was after Secret Invasion, they did that year of stories where the villains were in charge at Marvel. I could go back and read those, and those are so much fun, with Norman Osborn running the Avengers and all that. It was just a fun idea. Okay, we're going to do this for a year and see how the heroes could get out of it. And I thought this was the same thing. Obviously, I was the only one who felt that way. Sigh. There is a new printing of Miracle Man, The Golden Age, which is by Neil Gaiman and Mark Buckingham. This reprints Miracle Man 17 through 22 and the stuff from Total Eclipse. This was reprinted by Marvel as Miracle Man by Gaiman and Buckingham 1 through 6. This is a new printing of that. I am going to wait until Gaiman finishes the story because Marvel has been teasing us with that for 6 years now. Bastards. On the next page, Avengers Kree Skrull War Gallery Edition hardcover. I am not buying this because I have this in 3 different formats. But if you have never picked this up, this is the format to get. Gallery Edition is larger than a comic. It's 9 1/4 by 13. It printed beautifully. It reprints Avengers 89 through 97, which has art by Neil Adams, and then Neil Adams could not meet his deadline, so John Buscema and Sal Buscema finished it up, and they're still, let's face it, it's John Buscema. Back then it was like, oh, John Buscema finished it, what a shame. Now we look at it and go, wow, John Buscema, ooh, this is good. This is the original Kree Skrull War, one of the first big, long stories at Marvel. Back then, it was rare that a story lasted 3 issues. Remember, they had the Galactus trilogy because it went over 3 issues, and this one went for 9 issues. So kind of a big deal. Beautiful book. The ending is a Deus Ex Machina, but you don't care because the art is so good. Roy Thomas really wrote himself into a corner in this one. They have moved the X-Men reprint books. They are now called Trials of X because they are reprinting the Trial of Magneto. So if you did order the previous ones, they have been canceled, and this is the resolicitation because it's got a new name. There's a whole bunch of Epic collections, but the ones that I want to point out are first, Deadpool Epic Collection 2, Mission Improbable. This reprints the last of the, what I would call serious Deadpool stories, and then starts reprinting where Deadpool broke the fourth wall, started to get goofy, by Joe Kelly and Ed McGuinness. This is, you're basically, as you read this, you see how Deadpool went from a murderous assassin who told jokes while he killed people to the Deadpool we know and love now. There is also a new printing of the Incredible Hulk Epic Collection, number 19, which reprints one of the Peter David runs. It has Hulk number 420 to 435 with all the tie-ins. I want to point out Tomb of Dracula, the Complete Collection, Volume 6. Tomb of Dracula, one of Marvel's greatest books from the 70s. If you've been picking it up, you're loving it. Do not pick this up. This is what happened after they canceled the book and Marv Wolfman quit and went over to DC. So you've got the Tomb of Dracula magazine, which I think he only did the first 2 issues of. Then after that, it was whoever was sitting around the office. There is a Steve Ditko Dracula story, which is worth getting because it's weird that Steve Ditko would draw that, but it's cheaper to actually just buy that back issue. It also has the Doctor Strange story where all the vampires get killed. And Joe, remember how I said I had no idea why they did that?
Mm-hmm.
A Marvel editor has let me know why they did it.
Ooh.
One of the editors at Marvel at the time answered my query. When Marv Wolfman left, nobody really wanted to use vampires except Chris Claremont. And the writer in question seems like he has an axe to grind with Chris Claremont because he did a number of stories undoing stuff that Claremont did, including putting Magneto on trial. But he went to the editors and said, look, if there were really vampires, superheroes would do nothing else but try to get rid of them. So we need to get rid of them, or every story should be about superheroes getting rid of vampires because they kill people. And I'm going to explain to you real quick with a few questions why that's a stupid idea and a stupid thought. Joe, in the Marvel universe, are there drugs that kill people? Illegal drugs that kill people?
Oh yeah.
Are there is there a mafia or a mob that kills people?
Constantly.
Why haven't all the superheroes decided, well, we've got to get rid of this stuff, and they don't do anything else but that?
Boring.
No, it's because after you do that, who do you have for an antagonist? You get rid of all the criminals, who are they going to fight? You get rid of all the drugs, that makes the Marvel Universe so much different from our Earth that people would go, wait a minute, what do you mean there's no heroin, there's no cocaine, there's none of this stuff? It was more that, look, Chris Claremont's doing vampire stories. I don't like the fact that Chris Claremont and his X-Men are over in their own corner and get to do whatever they want. He started some stories with vampires. If we get rid of all the vampires, it fucks him over, so let's fuck him over. The editor didn't say that's what the writer was doing, but he implied it. So there you go. There's Marvel.
Yeah, boring.
Hey, Squirrel Girl's going to be fun.
Yeah, but the rest is boring. Like I said, it's just, we'll see how long it happens. I was talking with one of the retailers as I was cruising around. And he says the biggest problem a lot of these publishers have is the paper shortage. That's why so many books are being delayed. Phantom Stranger Omnibus. So we'll see how much, if any of these things will actually show. Maybe we should have oh my gosh, my omnibus made it. Oh well. Now it's time for the rest of previews. Dun dun dun. Me. All right, jump to page 220. I don't hear you jumping. Okay, there we go. Hell is a Squared Circle, published by Aftershock. Is wrestling noir a genre? It is now. Ted the Irish Muska Walsh is a third-tier wrestling heel with a problem himself. Behind on his rent, child support, and his career, but he thinks he can change things. As he attempts to take control of his life, his actions leave him with blood on his hands. Ted finds himself on the run from authorities and the darkness of his past. As Ted tries to escape his former self and build a new, better future, his mistakes come back to haunt him. In the Ring and Out. It's a 48-page prestige format one-shot, which is good enough for me. A couple different covers to choose from. I'll probably go with the one that's on page 220, unless it's like a silly, expensive variant. So, yeah, you put them together, wrestling, comics. Oh, you'll get me almost every time.
Now, you see, I looked at the art on page 221, and it was, I don't think I'm going to get it. And then I looked over at who wrote it.
Yeah.
Chris Condon, who writes That Texas Blood, which is my favorite Image comic right now. I will buy anything he does. However, I'm going to ask you to flip back, Joe.
Back? That rarely happens. Rarely happens.
Go to page 214. No, it's not the Garbage Pail Kids cookbook.
Cerebus in Hell, Flailing at Love, one shot?
Phenomena, Volume 1, The Golden City of Eyes, graphic novel, written by Brian Michael Bendis, celebrated comics artist Andre Lima Araujo. It is a first volume in a new series. It is a fantasy adventure series, story of a young boy named Bolden and his warrior friend Spike, survivors of a phenomenon that took over Earth years ago. Not an apocalypse, something far more interesting. Gonna give this a try. Think it's gonna be interesting. I also like that Bendis is doing more of these. All right, I'm gonna do a series of trade paperbacks and hardcovers rather than, okay, here's a mini series that may or may not end within the next year or so. Also above that is the resolicitation of The Night Eaters, which is by the creative team that does Monstrous. see, next I had Hell is a Squared Circle, but Joe already beat
I
me.
know. Well, I'm going to jump forward to page 238. And not something I'm going to get, but just something I want to point out. If you're fans of Night of the Living Dead, American Mythology has a new comic coming out. 4 different covers to choose from. If I choose, I would probably go with the classic photo cover. I mean, now those are zombies right there. So if you're into the dead, they're going to rise again.
If you go back to page 236, Amazing Slave Labor is reprinting some stuff. I don't know how many copies of Filler Bunny, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, and Squee Joe sold.
Oh,
but it had to be a lot.
Oh, yes.
This is the creator of Invader Zim before he did create Invader Zim, bringing his stuff back into print. But also on that page is Albatross Exploding Funny Books number 3. First issue came out. It was so much fun. Little short, weird, funny stories by Eric Powell, who does The Goon. I absolutely fell in love with that book. If you missed out the first issue, it should still be in your comic shops. Issue 2's coming out. I actually did not order issue 2, and I contacted DCB Service and said, hey, can you put that on my order? They're like, oh, the final cutoff's already passed. So once again, I'm going to have to go to comic shops.
Oh, no,
that
you're
issue.
Have to leave the safety of your compound.
It's more I have to put up with people and parking.
But sweet baby.
But the good thing is, because I use my phone for navigation, I've got Oscar the Grouch doing my navigation. So I like that. What I'll point out on page 242, there is a new comic strip that just started this month in newspapers. I don't even know if it's in the local newspaper, but it's one that the creator has been doing online for a few years. I absolutely love it. It is called Crabgrass. So this is a trade paperback reprinting the early stuff. Crabgrass is a comic strip set in the fictional town of Crabgrass Grove. Features the close friendship of Kevin, who's white, and Miles, who is black, and the many stumbles and breakthroughs their encounters have. This reminds me so much of Calvin and Hobbes without the grown-ups. You know, the grown-ups are a part of this, but it's really 2 kids doing kid stuff. And it reminds me so much of when I was a kid, just sort of the goofy, stupid stuff that kids do. Yeah, I've been following it for a few years. He just got a contract and has kind of rebooted it. So to kind of start over in newspapers, but this reprints all the early stuff. I cannot recommend this strip enough. It's just so much fun. It's pretty rare anymore that a comic strip makes me laugh. This one makes me laugh. The other thing I like about it is his art, even in the smallness that is given to comic strips now, he uses it in such an inventive way and has such expression and motion with his art. Again, reminds me a lot of Calvin and Hobbes in that the art is better than it should be. The stories are more fun than they should be, and it really captures being a kid. So wanted to recommend that. Joe?
I'm up in the Archies on page 248. 2 Sabrina things. The first one is Sabrina Anniversary Spectacular. Number 1, it's comic for $2.99. Beneath it is the Archie Showcase Digest number 10, which I will pick up both because I love me Sabrina. Across from it's a book I may or may not pick up, the Archie Encyclopedia. It's an encyclopedia of Archie comic characters and universes, and a be-all, end-all guide to everything in the expanded and ever-growing world of Archie comics. Sure, you may know who Archie, Betty, Veronica, Jughead, and Reggie are. Maybe even know a thing or two about Dilton, Ethel, Cheryl, and Moose. But that's still only scratching the surface of the vast library of Archie comics characters. An ideal collector item for mega fans, as well as a perfect jumping point for fans that are new to Archie comics. I'd like encyclopedia thing. So this may be one that I will pick up. It all depends on, like I said, the overall bill. That's it for Archie for me for this month, Mr. Strode.
The Archie Encyclopedia is one I'm wavering on as well. There's another comic I'm wavering on, and it's going to depend again on the budget, and that is on page 280, Saga of a Doomed Universe. And if you look at all the covers, it is super nostalgia time, folks. CEX Publishing is proud to present 1984's most shocking comic book revealed at last. The heroes have been murdered except for Roy Bannon, a costume loser who could never become the champion that Earth needs. Now it will be Roy's chance to prove everyone wrong, since even if he has to destroy the entire universe to do it. This is a comic that changed everything, presented in 3 triple-size volumes with 6 covers, including homages to some of the other comics that changed everything.
Now, see, if they'd have named him Joe, I'd have been all over it. But Ray, nah, not doing it.
I'm interested because of the pure nostalgia of it. The only thing that holds me back is that description. It's like, oh, he'll destroy the whole universe. He should be fighting against the whatever's destroying the universe, but we'll see. I love the nostalgia covers, though. They basically do homages to Secret Wars, Watchmen, the Marvel 25th anniversary, the Handbook of the Marvel Universe, and DC's Who's Who.
Yeah.
So it looks fun. It's a little pricey. It's $6.99.
$8.99.
Oh, that's right. It's $8.99.
Yeah.
But it's 56 pages. So we'll see what we see. I also wanted to point out Binge Books. I was going to keep an eye on them. Their new book is their weird vampire book that's drawn like an Archie book, Super Suckers. And I picked it up and it was awful.
Awful.
So it picked up number 1, didn't like it, so I'm not picking up number 2. Sorry, guys.
I am going to point out, if you jump to page 256, Avatar is doing another $5.99 blowout of their collections. I've partake of lots of these as they offer them in the past, so there's very little there that I'm interested in. But again, you may want to peek because your mileage may vary. Jump forward to page 276, Boundless, home of Lady Death, Belladonna, Jungle Fantasy, all that stuff. They're doing a bunch of set blowouts as well. So here's your chance to pick up some cheap reading.
The one I am going to point out that most people may not have seen is there are some Alan Moore books, but I want to point out Dix, volumes 1 through 3. It's Garth Ennis and Joel McCrea doing a super violent, super funny detective book. They're Private Dix. So that one I really liked. You know, there's some of the others it's hard for me to like Avatar books because their art style is very stylized and very stiff. It almost looks like they're just doing poses of people. But I did like Dick's. Joel McCrea's art is so much fun. That is the team that did Hitman over at DC. Also want to point out the Garth Ennis War Stories. Volume 1 is completely sold out, but they still have volumes 2, 3, and 4. It's Garth Ennis doing serious war stories, short stories, fantastic stuff. Originally printed by DC. The next thing I have.
Who is doing that?
That is Avatar.
No. Who's writing War Stories?
That's the Garth Ennis book.
Oh, I was going to say Grant Morrison's got a book from Del Rey on page 286.
That was my next thing I was pointing out.
Luda, go ahead.
It is a novel. A drag queen initiates her protege into the magical arts in this phantasmagoric epic, the first novel from legendary comics writer and New York Times bestselling author. It's Grant Morrison. He's writing a novel. I'm going to buy it. Especially after I read that interview with him where he basically said there's nothing more for me to do in comics. The last thing he wanted to do was that Green Lantern story. He has nothing more to do in comics. And he pointed out, I've been writing comic books for over 30 years. That means I've had the same job for 30 years. How many of you have had the same job for 30 years? Which, good point. Since Joe is probably hacking up a lung, we're going to go to page 294 and 295.
That's
On
funny.
page
That's
294,
exactly what I was saying as I was hacking up. 294. What do you got?
Page 294 is a new collection, The Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers in the 21st Century. This is the final Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers stories by Gilbert Shelton and Paul Mavridis. All of the ones that have been done since the year 2000. They also have a resolicit of The Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, The Idiots Abroad, and Other Follies. This isn't the complete Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, but it's this Idiots Abroad is the stuff from the 90s. 21st Century is the stuff after 2000. I would imagine they're going to be printing the other stuff here soon. I also want to point out on the next page, 295, See You at San Diego.
Yes, that's
An
the other
oral
one.
history of Comic-Con fandom and the triumph of geek culture. It is 480 pages for $40. They also on that page have the We Told You So, which is the oral history of Fantagraphics. The Fantagraphics book is utterly fantastic. It is basically them telling the story of how they went from buying Nostalgia Journal, which was an ad zine where people would buy ads to sell comics. And then they started having articles, and then they turned it into the Comics Journal, which became the most loved and hated magazine in comics. Then they started publishing with Love and Rockets and everything from there. It's the entire history of the company. Such a fantastic book, and gets into the nitty gritty. Even though it's published by Fantagraphics, they don't hold anything back. They publish all the dirt about themselves. This San Diego Comic-Con book will be great as well. So look forward to it.
We're going to revisit this number again. 300, as in page 300. There's a couple things there. And I'm not talking about the Bernie Wrightson, the FPG Years hardcover, which itself is amazing. I'm looking right across from it, Floating World Comics, Sea of Time #1. This visionary tone poem explores the nature and indigenous ecological traditions that influenced Imperial Expedition naturalist G.W. Steller, who, at the moment of his death in 1746, recalls his discoveries and travels throughout Siberia and the North Pacific. Just something that kind of caught my eye, looked kind of interesting. Unless you think I've gone all soft, right down underneath Fright Unseen, Sick and Twisted, #1. Cry for Dawn co-creator Joseph M. Monks returns to his splatterpunk roots. It's a brand new title, 3 stories, 32 pages. The extreme edge he's known for. Zombie killer Gory Laurie returns in a tale illustrated by Will Playdon, while in Dead Sea, illustrated by Jason Moser, New York buddies looking for something unusual find it thanks to an underground newspaper devoted to showing off the city's seedy underbelly. So, could be a one-shot, could be a no-shot, but you had me when I heard Joseph Monks was back.
On page 323, IDW is reprinting one of the greatest biographies of a comics creator of all time, and that is Genius Isolated, The Life and Art of Alex Toth. It is written by Dean Mullaney and Bruce Canwell. Alex Toth was a foremost proponent of modern design and composition. Starting in 1950, his work influenced almost every one of his contemporaries and has continued to work its magic on generations that follow. Now in paperback, this biography has complete access to family archives with full cooperation of his children. It features many comic pages, photographs, drawings. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. If you want to know about Alex Toth, who did comics, he did animation. If there is an adventure series in animation from the 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s, Alex Toth designed it. We're talking Space Ghost, Johnny Quest, Super Friends, Thundar the Barbarian,
One more
on and
time.
on and
What
on.
page is that on?
That is on page 323.
323.
And soon I will be getting the host of an Alex Toth podcast, our old pal Paul Fricke, on for an interview, just so we can talk Alex Toth to people who may not know who he is.
Cool. I'm going to jump back.
We just have to have our schedules match up.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to jump back to page 309. Cory, would you read a memoir from Cassandra Peterson?
Why, yes, I would.
Yep. She has it from the Hatchet Book Group. Yours truly, Elvira, Memoirs of the Mistress of the Dark softcover. And you know me, I love these memoirs. I gush on them every time I read them in our geeking section. And other than, being autographed, I definitely going to be picking this one up because it should be fun. And, I'll probably be blabbing on about it much later as I read it.
Joe, could you go to page 331?
Oh, I suppose.
A comic that's been gone for almost 40 years is back. And it's probably a comic that I don't know if you would remember or not. Nervous Rex by William Van Horn. This was the first comics work from animator William Van Horn, who would then go on to make a name for himself at Disney, drawing Donald Duck, Knuckles, Scrooge comics. Mild-mannered Tyrannosaurus Rexford doesn't really fit in with the Jurassic Age, and he'd rather just eat oatmeal and hang out with his friends. His wife, Dearie, is always after him to be a more aggressive meat eater and to add to the fossil record. Also returning is a backup story featuring the diminutive King Billy, featuring a retro cover with an all-new variant cover by William Van Horn. I loved Nervous Rex. It always seemed to be out of place in comic shops because it very much would have been a comic I would have read as a kid that would have come out from Gold Key or Harvey. And it was so much fun. And then William Van Horn went on to work for Disney and did tons of great Disney comics for Gladstone and then overseas. If you've not read this book, it is well worth your time. It's a little overpriced. It's $5.99 for a 32-page comic. But it's really fun and really sweet. I just love it. I just love it. Joe?
On page 315, Madwoman of the Sacred Heart. Writer Alejandro Jodorowsky and some guy that obviously didn't have enough for two names with it, Mobius. Wow, that doesn't sound right. Anyways, this is a collection. Alan Manger has it all. As a popular professor at the world-famous University de la Sorbonne, he is wealthy, married, and academically acclaimed. On his 60th birthday, however, his life crumbles as a beautiful young student claims she has received a holy vision that Mengele is to impregnate her with the second coming of John the Baptist. Thus begins a wild existence and spiritual journey that challenges his very reality when everything once true is proved to be false, while everything once false is proved to be true. It's back in print and released in an oversized format. And I've never read it, but now I will.
Joe, go to page 298.
298?
Kind of surprised you didn't bring this up because you said you were going to buy it when it came out.
I'm still back on page 322, but no, go ahead.
Tex in the Land of the Seminoles hardcover is coming out. That's one of the books that we reviewed for Free Comic Book Day. 400 pages for $35.99. I really liked the art. I think getting that chunk of it, there were bits of it that were a little confusing, but I think having the whole story will clear all that up. This was one that we both gave a buy to when we reviewed it for Free Comic Book Day.
What page was that again? I had
298.
298. There we go. No
And
kidding.
then on page 366, I talked about a little earlier, the Best of 2000 AD, Volume 1. This will be 6 volumes. They'll be $22.99 each. This is the Ultimate 2000 AD mixtape. In each edition, you'll find an explosive new Judge Dredd adventure, plus essays from prominent popular culture writers, a graphic novel-length feature presentation by global legends, and a vintage Dredd case. In this volume, Judge Dredd battles the multi-block anarchy. Halo Jones escapes in Alan Moore's first masterpiece. Halo Jones by Alan Moore and Ian Gibson is so goddamn good. And Humanity is on the Brink in a murder mystery from Dan Abnett and I.N.J. Culbert. Judge Anderson takes center stage in the search for Shambhala. So there you go, 2000 AD. If you haven't read it, this is a good place to start. Joe?
Back on page 322, Farm System graphic novel by Rich Kowalski. For every hero who saves the galaxy and makes the front page, there are a dozen staff workers behind the scenes and hundreds up-and-comers hoping to take his place. Farm System is your ticket to the hidden world of super-powered individuals hoping to make the big leagues. Guided by an army of agents, managers, and experts, recruits must undergo rigorous psychological evaluations, harassment and sensitivity seminars, marketing and endorsement workshops, and costume design meetings, all to boost their chances of recruitment to the A-list superhero team. And also, somewhere else in IDW, if I can, I was going to point out Star Trek Lower Decks #1. I love Lower Decks on Paramount Plus, and this is their first. It looks like it'll probably be just a one-shot to begin with. So if you like the show, you probably want to check this out. Right above it, another anniversary, Star Trek #400. My assumption is they just, this is IDW's 400th issue of Star Trek. So they just counted everything in one big thing. So that's a couple interesting books.
If you go to page 408, there is a new book from Tomorrow's.
Carlton Companion.
The all-new definitive history of Connecticut's notorious all-in-one comic book company. Often disparaged as a second-rate funny book outfit, Carlton produced a vast array of titles that span from the 1940s golden age to the bronze age of the 70s in many genres. The imprint experienced explosive bursts of creativity, most memorably the action hero line edited by Dick Giordano, which featured, the renowned talents of Steve Ditko and a stellar lineup of creators. The unforgettable 70s Bullseye era, which spawned E-Man and Doomsday +1, all helmed by veteran masters and talented newcomers. Their history books are fantastic. Carlton is a company that I know about, but there's always more to learn, because most of the stuff we learn is from the people who worked there for a short amount of time. Having it all in one place would be cool. And I really desperately want to know certain things, such as they got the Hanna-Barbera stuff because they underbid Gold Key. But then Hanna-Barbera was furious because none of their stuff was on model and it all looked like shit. Because this is not a rumor, this is actual truth. Carlton printed their comics on the same press that was used to print cereal boxes, which is why all their comics looked as bad as they did. Really looking forward to this book. Happy it's finally coming out. And this is one of those books where after I read it, I will be going on and on and on about it, and on the podcast by going, hey, I just found out this. Hey, I just found out that.
Cory reads it, so you don't have to.
Joe?
Page 335. Congratulations, Kenzer and Company. The 300th issue of Knights of the Dinner Table is out, or going to be out. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. Also, I will bring you up to page 347, and maybe don't bother. We got word that apparently Oni Press has laid off 4 more top staffers in what's being described as management restructuring. This is over 2 weeks after the merge that publisher James Lucas Jones and Executive Vice President of Creative Business Development Charlie Chu had been let go. Oni Press is withdrawn from the San Diego Comic-Con. There's been other departures before that. Nobody's quite sure what's going on. Some of the people in the know are saying if you have a project that's going on, that's tied with Oni, you probably want to check your contract to make sure it's not tied in, because if they go under, you may lose it. And if you got something coming, maybe steer clear for a little bit. So this may be the last hurrah for Oni, or not. I'm just saying, they've been hanging on for a while, but when it goes bad, we'll revisit it if they disappear. That's for dang sure.
And it's really been a while since we've had a comic company fall apart. Oni merged with what was it, Lion Source? Who was it they merged with? I want to look here because they merged with someone a while back, and that's really never a good sign. Yeah, they merged with Lion Source Press, which has now vanished.
Yeah,
and is no longer listed in there. They've made a lot of money with the Rick and Morty stuff. They've had a lot of young adult novels, but usually when you get to a certain size, and I think IDW is a good way of telling about this. When you grow to a certain size, you need to either keep growing or you've outgrown yourself, which is you hired a bunch of people, you thinking your sales were going to keep going up, and if they ever stagnate, well, you've hired people to put out more stuff that isn't going to generate as much money. So then you start losing money and things collapse very fast. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm also saying that is a lot of what has happened in the past. So I'm sure we will find out more in the months and weeks to come. And for me, that is it.
I have one more thing. On page 384 from SourcePoint Press, Heaven's Rejects. 2 variant covers to choose from. What if Charlie's angels were real angels? When 3 violent, foul-mouthed angels are dumped on Earth after flunking out of Heaven's army, they find out the hard way that life ain't cheap. Good deeds don't pay the rent, so these angels agree to freelance for a gang of demons, killing their evil rivals for cash. The angels get paid, they're fighting wickedness, they take money away from the bad guys. That's good, right? So it's a angelic suicide squad on wild ride into epic mythological ass-kicking action. Your job still sucks, but these ladies have it worse. First issue in September, and I'll imagine I'll revisit it once we get to it. And that's it for me.
Well, we have to flip the book.
Now it's time. This is for Brian. Yes, our one of our beloved listeners called and bitterly complained. You guys give short shrift to the toy section. Well, we don't anymore. Matter of fact, we fully expect that Brian buys everything we recommend.
And if he doesn't, we're going to have to smack him around at some point.
Yep. And of course, I only recommend the best. For example, on page 72, Judge Dredd and Lawmaster Mark II 1/18th scale exquisite mini figurine set from Haida Toys. The future's greatest lawman needs a bike powerful enough to patrol the streets of the mega city, and he's got it with the newest Judge Dredd figures from Haida Toys. So it looks pretty sweet. Boy, I wish I had all the different motorcycle figures, Deadpool on his scooter, Ghost Rider, the Spawn Ninja figures. Then put Judge Dredd on there. Just a mass. I think Black Widow has a bike too, if I'm not recalling.
That was the one that I chose as well. But if you go all the way back to page 3,
Whoa.
there are Final Fantasy figures. And normally I would go, yeah, I want the Final Fantasy figures. However, this is Final Fantasy 11, which was the first online MMO, which is massive multiplayer online. I don't like playing online with other people for a different
And you
reason.
thought it was just Cory being in public with real people. No, he doesn't like going online with other people.
You know why I don't like playing video games online with other people? When Xbox first had Xbox Live and you got your headset and okay, I'm going to be playing video games with other people. Well, I have a job, and at the time I had a kid, so I didn't spend my whole life playing video games. So I get online, and every goddamn other person is some 12-year-old who has spent the last 6 months playing the game and has twitch reflexes and everything. And the minute you make any mistake, first off, they're going to kill you. Then they're going to mock you. And I don't need some 12-year-old calling me gay. So I don't play the massive multiplayer games. And recently, Electronic Arts got in a lot of trouble because the CEO said at some event where, here are the games that we have coming out. And he was asked about, the fact that a lot of their games, they're all online and multiplayer. And he was asked, well, why are you making the solo portions of the game so short? And he said, only losers play solo missions. And all of a sudden, sales on those games just dropped through the floor. And he had to actually publicly apologize and say that in future games, they will beef up the solo player thing. And he misspoke. No, you didn't misspeak. You said something stupid and you got caught. I think it's great that there are people who have the time and the patience, and that is what they want to do. But for me, it's more, I just want to fire up a video game for an hour or so and shoot stuff or play a game or whatever. I don't want to have to become a master in order to last more than 30 seconds. But that's just me.
Oh, wait a minute. I got one more thing for Brian.
Really?
Really? And again, it was a $70 toy. Well, if he's feeling cheap, on page 99 is the Marvel Moon Knight face coffee mug from Surreal Entertainment. It's only available through previews, so he can perk up after a long night of fighting villains, or your own mind, with this Moon Knight mug that has the face of Moon Knight on the front and the Moon Knight logo on the back. Again, these are the type of things when I had my comic shop, I would stock several of them. Because I sold mugs, I sold shot glasses, I sold pint glasses. But no one else in town carries them.
Can I point out something in the previous section that's not a comic?
Sure.
Go to page 482, Joe.
Now I gotta open my previews again. And I gotta
tell me
flip it back.
which 2 shirts am I buying?
What page are we at? 482?
482. Tell me which 2 shirts I'm buying.
Let's see. Well, there's no Grendel. There's no Spider-Gwen. Oh my God, there's 2 MODOK.
MODOK!
All right, that wasn't worth opening my previews for.
I am so upset that the MODOK animated series was canceled. It was so good. It was so good. You know who else is good, Joe?
These guys are sponsors.
Our newest sponsor is NordVPN. Let's be honest, if you're out on the internet, you need a VPN to protect you. There's all sorts of things going on the internet where people can track you. You could accidentally download a keylogger, all sorts of things. NordVPN gives the best security possible. It has a password manager which generates complex passwords, syncs across all your devices, stores your notes and credit card information. It also gives you 10 gigabytes of private cloud storage, secure files. It backs up your data automatically. But the main thing it gives you is peace of mind. It gives you peace of mind when you're out on the internet, when you're streaming, when you're playing games, when you're listening to podcasts like this one. It gives you safety anywhere at any time. It protects your online activity. You get full access to all content. And if you use the link go.nordvpn.net sh3ku, it'll take you to where you can get a great deal for a 1-month plan, a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan. They are our newest sponsor. We're happy to have them. And if you would like to sponsor something here at any of the podcasts on the Solitaire Rose Network, you can. Just email me, solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And all of these other podcasts I do. The Solitaire Rose Radio Network is currently on a pause, basically because COVID-19 has made it so that I have to work a lot of extra hours at both jobs. But you can still go and listen to my other podcasts. Now, you're probably listening to Crazy Comics and Stories, which is the main podcast. But on this same feed, KRAYZCOMIX, is Solitaire Rose Radio, the solo radio podcast that I do. I've done interviews, I've done short stories, I've done all sorts of things, and you can get to it right here on this same feed. I also do a podcast called Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's over at novels.solitairerose.com. Dangerous Dan Moore and I, and of course Wolfie B. Bad, give you bad advice over at badadvice.solitairerose.com. You send in your questions, and we give you the aforementioned bad advice. And then myself and Adam Vermillion from For the Love of Comics do the Fantastic Forecast at fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com, where we go through the issues of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time, to give the plot and commentary on each issue. That's not all. Yes, I'm crazy. I still, over at pwinsiderelite.com, every week on Wednesday, do a recap of the latest episode of AEW Dynamite. I write up what happened, and then myself and Anthony Pyrus will do an audio. Now, you can only listen to the audio, if you remember, at pwinsiderelite.com, and if you're a wrestling fan, you should be, where we then break down the episode, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, give it a grade, and let you know if you should have watched that episode. Those are the other podcasts here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network. Thanks. And now we get to Joe's favorite part of the show. No, not where he buys me those 2 MODOK shirts, brings them over to my house with a pie, sets it on the deck, and backs away slowly.
Very slowly.
No, it's what's going on the eBays.
Lots of stuff. But because on the previews episode, I don't like to waste any more time of your precious time, I won't go into a lot of eBay stuff, but I will apologize for violating the first rule I do since we've been doing this eBay thing. I'd like to talk to you about things that I put up on the eBays that I can sell. Well, after the last one, I got an email from somebody that said, hey, I thought you said you had, in this case, it was the Marvel 40th Years of X-Men DVD-ROM Collector Edition. I went online and it's gone. What happened? Well, in between me recording it, the episode being posted, it's sold. So again, my apologies. I shouldn't talk about things that I loaded. I was excited because these were things that our good buddy Mike Edmondson had. I'm selling it for his wife, Lisa. And I was just, I finally got around to doing it, but 3 of the 4 sold almost instantly, which is amazing because people I know have said, oh, I've had these sitting around for years and I just threw them out. It's like, oh, well, there are people that will buy them either because they have a DVD-ROM available or they just like that format. So heck, don't throw your beta tapes away. There might be somebody collecting beta. So again,
Joe?
Yes?
There is a resurgence in VHS tapes. There is a new VHS rental store in LA that is doing enormous business. Joe Bob Briggs had his big horror hootenanny that lasted 3 days. There were rare videotapes selling for hundreds of dollars.
Most of
Videotapes
those,
are starting to come back.
Most of those, I would bet, would be things that would never put on DVD. A lot of out of print horror films, things like that. So yeah, never just throw anything away, which is part of my problem. But again, for previews, I gotta, or for eBays here, I just gotta remember not to talk about what's coming up. No, however, I've been putting things online furiously because, like I mentioned last time, I bought like over $500 worth of stuff, and a lot of it are things that I figured, well, if I have it, great. If not, I'll just put it on eBay because I only paid $1 for it. I'm not losing a lot of money. So the best thing to do is just check it out. Head on over, KRAYZ. If you see something you like, you know what to do. Get a hold of me. Tell me that you're a listener of this here podcast, and I'll cut you in a deal. I don't give away keys to the Strode compound anymore because Cory never leaves it, and Lord knows I don't want you to run into him in his MODOK shirt. Even if you do bring pie, just set it down.
MODOK.
But you know what to do. Come get some.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where I say MODOK for about 15 minutes.
MODOK. God dang, that is good. Is that your mantra, MODOK?
It is now. No, it's freaking and geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Well, I mentioned I was sick. I caught a cold. I don't like it. One of the hardest things to seek forgiveness on are sins of omission. My brother and sister are livid with me because apparently I did not spend enough time helping my parents move from their house they've been in for 20 years that was filled with stuff that apparently what I didn't realize is when they moved from the childhood home I lived in, they didn't get rid of stuff. They just moved it to this place. And again, they both don't have jobs. My sister's off work during the summer because she works at the university teaching Italian. My brother's unemployed. So they spend a lot of time over there, more than I have. And they're just pig biting mad at me that I can't do it. And of course, I can't explain, well, I did have her. Well, you can come over anyways. Well, yeah, but the one time you asked, I just taking oxycodone. You don't drive with oxycodone in your system. None of you would come pick me up. Oh, that's no excuse. Well, and then my wife had COVID. Well, my husband has COVID. I can go over. It's really this from the person who was crying at me last year. Don't kill my father. Because we were over trying to clean out the place in the middle of the pandemic. There are things in my past I could probably get upset about. Like, again, certain family members, they get together and they hit a bar, but they never thought to call me. Now they're dead. I'll never get to go hang with them. And to think that I was sitting on my ass at home and they were 10 miles away at a bar drinking, having a fun time, and they never once thought to call me. Don't set somebody up on a sin of omission. If you're upset with them, fine. But if they don't know you're upset, don't jump on them. And the bottom line is where my brother and sister are mad at me because I didn't help my folks move, I actually got a chance to talk to my folks. And we'll talk about that when we get to geeking. They're not mad at me. So again, my brother and sister are taking umbrage on behalf of my folks, and they're not even mad at me. Don't be offended. Don't get upset for someone else. I shouldn't need to say these messages, and I know Laurel and Hardy, my brother and sister, ain't listening to my podcast, so they ain't going to listen to me. But just don't do that to your friends. Don't do that to your family. It's a snotty thing to do. And yeah, it bothers me, which is why I don't normally talk personal family dynamics, but this is really bothering me. And I will ask Cory a quick question. When I say Toledo Mud Hens, what TV show do you think of?
MASH.
Thank you. I went to a game yesterday where the St. Paul Saints, our local AAA affiliate team that feeds into the Twins, was playing the Toledo Mud Hens. And I took a picture of the board, a picture of the field, and I posted it on a MASH Facebook page saying, hey, look who's on, look who we're playing. And I got one of those, we have taken your post down because it's not on topic. And I was like, say what? Now you remember I talked about this was maybe half a year ago when I was on a Bloom County Facebook page, and they were just posting random panels and strips, and I thought, well, this is great. This is a great opportunity. I'll reread everything. I'll post some of the fun stuff. And I started posting from like the early Bloom County, even like before Opus was around, and it got removed. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe it was just offensive. So then I posted it again, and then I got the nasty. If you continue to post off-topic things, I'm going to ban you from this site. And I put not only on the Facebook page the actual comic panel. If you remember the old comic panels, they used to have the waste space where it had the logo and then a one-panel cartoon, and then it went into the regular cartoon. That's so that comic editors could edit out that Bloom County header page and just run the strip and save space in their comic pages. And I was like, listen, I'm getting yelled at and threatened because I'm posting Bloom County strips. I don't know who's your editor is, but you might want to advise them that there's more to Bloom County than just Opus. And I left. I said, I don't need this bullshit. I was doing it for fun, and they just kind of, they kind of shit on you. And then I got a call back from, or not a call, but like a text back from another administrator saying, sorry about that. The person on there is not familiar with early Bloom County. We're trying to bring them up to speed. And then they sent me another note saying, oh, we're so sorry, blah, blah, blah. No, forget it. I don't care anymore. I put my Bloom County, the IDW collection, back on the shelf, and I just went on. Oddly enough, I decided not to do that route with MASH. What I did is I took it and I said, instead of, hey, look who the Twin Cities, my home team's playing, I went, they're playing Klinger's favorite page, or team, the Toledo Mud Hens, and I tried to repost it. By the time I did that, I found out another administrator reposted it. So they obviously went on there and said, hey, Mud Hens, Toledo Mud Hens, what's wrong with you? Don't get rid of it. So whatever. Sort of pseudo happy ending, but I was a little pissed. Enough so that, you're down, you're sitting there putzing around with your phone, missing the actual game in front of you, which can be dangerous if a fly ball comes that way. No fly balls came my way. The first thing I do when I'm there is I look around for a kid, because if I get a fly ball or catch it, I'll give it to the kid. Good karma.
Wait a minute.
Oh, wait,
so
am I in the geek?
Your wife would not protect you if a ball was flying at your head.
Well, she might protect herself.
But you're on your own.
Hell yes.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen.
And that's all I'm freaking on. Cory, what are you freaking on?
I don't have a lot to freak on because I've been very, very busy.
Busy. The
Yes.
key to keeping Cory unfreakable is keep him busy.
And the only freaking is that, boy, this is the time of year when the people who call us at my office job are angry. Because we're in the middle of the year. There's not much they can do to make changes, and they're angry about it. So I'm going to go over a call I had and why you, if you are calling a call center, should not do it. So I get a call this morning, someone who said, hey, I've moved from California to Florida. In California, the dental plan I was in had a lot of dentists that I could go to. Here in Florida, there aren't very many. I would like to change plans. Now, normally, You're not allowed to do this because the dental plan we have is nationwide. But I know, because I've been there a while, that they can look at this and make a change if they can justify it. Because you can only change your benefits during certain times of the year because your benefits are pre-tax. Anything pre-tax is governed by the IRS. The IRS then every year will look at the people you've allowed to make changes during the year to A, make sure that you follow the rules, and B, if you grant exceptions, that you're granting exceptions fairly. It's not, oh, the people who make a lot of money, we give them exceptions, but the people who don't make a lot of money, they don't get exceptions. Or the people who work in this department get a lot of exceptions because we really need people in that department. And the people in this department who are dime a dozen, et cetera, et cetera. The IRS does this a lot. So I know that there's a chance, but I look and I ask, when did you move? Oh, I moved back on April 1st. So that's 3.5 months ago. You might have been able to make that change if you would have contacted us within 30 days because these are the IRS regulations. Well, where is that written? I then say, okay, in IRS section 125, it says that when a company makes timelines and deadlines, they must stick to them, et cetera, et cetera. Here it is. She goes out to the IRS website. She says, there's nothing on there about 31 days. No, it's that when the company sets that date, they have to stick to it. Well, where is that written? In the summary plan description, which is our legal document on page 9, it goes over that. It doesn't say that moving is a qualified life event. It does say employment changes that affect your benefits may qualify under this rule. But it doesn't say moving. I need something in writing telling me I can't do this. First off, it's not a law that you can't do it. There's nothing in there permitting you to do it. You can't prove a negative. So I say, this is the phrase that is used, et cetera, et cetera. Here it is. Here's the context. I gave her all of the stuff that we had. Well, I want to know why the company does this. This, my friends, is where this person on the phone messed up and where you, if you are calling in, mess up. Do you think that a person who is chained to their desk all day and has to answer phone calls knows why a multinational corporation makes the decisions they make? No, we don't. We have no influence on it either. These are made on, I'm not to use this phrase at work, but that's above my pay grade. These are people who sit at the top of the skyscraper and have vice president after their name make these decisions in accordance with the legal department who assists them. Why? I don't know. And they're never going to tell me. So she badgered me to find out why. Why 31 days and not 60 days? Why this? Why doesn't it say moving? Why does it? And I just basically had to say, I understand your frustration. There's nothing that I can do. If you would like to put in a written complaint, here's the address to send it. But we've reached the end of what I can do. Well, I want to talk to the people who make these decisions. Thankfully, I have the little angel on my shoulder that says, shut up, Cory. Because I would say, if I didn't have that, I would say, they're not going to talk to you. They're busy. They're vice presidents. They're in meetings. They're not going to talk to someone who makes $30,000 a year and has spent a half hour badgering a phone rep. Phone reps don't know why things are done. They just have to go by what their rules are. We can't change the rules. It's the same as if you go into a store. If someone has a name tag on, that means they have no power. So when you tell them, I don't think it's right, or it's not fair, or the company needs to, you might as well be talking, you might as well be saying, well, you need to sprout wings and fly, because we have no power. No power at all. We can't change it. We can't advocate anything. You've reached the end of the line with us. You can send a written complaint, and I will tell you what happens to written complaints. They go in your employment file and they go, this person is a problem.
Oh, wait. I thought they'd do this. They take it in a piece of paper and they go.
No. They literally will put it in your employment file saying, this person is a problem. And when you go for a promotion, they're going to look at that and they're going to go, look at what this person did. Do you want that person in your department? Do you want someone who complains and belly aches and questions company decisions? Do you want someone like that in your department? You probably don't. You have to remember, in the employment world, one of the things they tell you when you're looking for a job, scrub your social media, because they're going to look at your social media. They're not supposed to, but they're going to. They're going to do the same for at work. They're going to look at your entire employment record. And that is what I'm freaking on. Joe, what are you geeking on?
I've been reading stuff. Lots of stuff. Tons of stuff. The first thing I read from DC Black Label, Batman versus Bigby, A Wolf in Gotham. This was the Dark Knight crossover with the World of Fables. Absolutely stunning. I gotta say one thing though. I don't know if as a Batman reader you would dig this as much as I dug it being a Fables reader. Because the Batman in here may be the current Batman, but I don't recognize him. I mean, there's Batman, Robin, Batgirl, but he's got like a team of Robins. Almost like in Love and Capes when they had they're vying to see who's going to be sidekick for their Batman archetype, or in Astro City, who's going to be the altar boy. So, and again, Cory, are you reading Batman currently? Is that current Batman?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, you may dig it. I dug it because, and it was easy to follow, which is, again, from Bill Willingham, I expect nothing else. So I wasn't like, what the hell is going on? I was like, oh, okay, something new in Batman because I'm not following it. But it was just wonderful, wonderful. The art is awesome. Let's see, Brian Level, Jay Leistein, Lee Longridge. Just a fantastic book. It was so much fun to visit Fables again. And I'm still trying to hunt down the rest of the graphic novels for my collection. But this one's going in the list, and I'm so looking for it when it comes back. Not a big fan of horror, but I am a big fan of trains. So I picked up a book called Train 8. This is from Be Positive Films, and essentially this is either it reads like a script for a film. And they say it's an upcoming film. I haven't found heads or tails of it. It starts out, here are all the characters. Doesn't matter. As you read it, you'll catch along. Here's what's going on. They give you some of the scripts, some of the different writing on it, but just jump right in. This was based on a 3-issue comic series. And essentially, they get on an express train and zombies attack. And what ends up happening is they have to deal with that. They have to try to survive it. And of course, the authorities know what's going on, and they slowly move the train into, let's see if I can find it, the Fargo containment area, which apparently is a part of North Dakota I've never been aware of. And just a fascinating read. It's a virtual page turner. I mean, I just couldn't read it fast enough, and when it gets to be a movie, means this is going to be a kick-ass movie if it ever becomes a movie. First thing I did after reading it was look to see if it was a movie, and I haven't found heads or tails of it. But it's out there. It's definitely worth picking up. It does not hold back the gore. So for you guys who really dig the gore, you're going to dig it. On a more realistic rant, I picked up Vietnam Journal Hamburger Hill by Don Lomax from Caliber Comics. This is basically based, good English there, Joe, on his experiences in Vietnam. And it's short, it's pretty quick. A lot of these were published in Vietnam Journal by Apple Publishing. And Don Lomax has been publishing comics and cartoons in national magazines for over 50 years. Very interesting because it was back when the military would let journalists into the field with their soldiers. Not that they necessarily wanted them there, but they didn't stop them. Nowadays we really don't know what's going on because they learn their lesson. They keep journalists away from where the real action is so we don't get an idea what's really going on. But this was just an amazing, horrific insight of just what some of the grunts went through in Vietnam. And for a guy like me who reads history and likes it, it's worth picking up. I read from Kickstarter, Headlocked Tales from the Road. This is an illustrated serial drama on pro wrestling by Michael Kingston. And this is basically a who's who of pro wrestlers writing about their experiences in pro wrestling. You got guys like, you probably never heard of them, like, let's see, Crime Time, Frankie Kazarian, Danny Lamlight, Jeff Cobb, Michael Kington, Shad Gaspard. Thank you, Gaspar. I was like, the one guy I didn't want to slaughter his name, and I did, because there's a really nice write-up by Michael because Chad has passed away. Rob Van Dam wrote a story. John Morrison. There's a number of pinups. The cover is drawn by Jerry Lawler. My copy's autographed by Jerry and by Mike. Just a fun series. Anytime he does a Kickstarter, I'll definitely jump on board. My copy showed up a little bent, but hey, it reads the same. Although I probably could have sent for another one. The final one is I finally got around to reading Something is Killing the Children. As you know, I've got my collection together. I think I stopped at number 20 and decided I'm just going to pick these up in the nice hardcovers. Minor geeking, a little bit of wear on it. I got a little ding in the back hardcover because apparently something poked through the bag and poked into my hardcover. But just on the hardcover, I just can't have nothing mint. Oh, brilliant series. This should be a TV show. Again, another page turner where as I'm getting near the end and all the balls in the play are coming together, I gotta know what's gonna happen next. And I probably just read things way too fast, blipped over some of the art, but then I finally got to the end and I was like, oh, this was good. It does kind of smack of a problem sometimes where it's like you think, in my mind, it's like, okay, the main action with the hero is way over here, and then the secondary action bad guys are way over here, but somehow the hero gets there just in time. But that in and of itself wasn't a deal killer. I'm going to obviously wait for book 2 whenever it comes out. So I'm really looking forward to that. Now, if you are interested, a while back I talked about Irredeemable because I've got the big collection. If you are interested on Kickstarter right now, you can get the complete Irredeemable Deluxe Library, which is the ultimate collection spanning Irredeemable, Incorruptible, and Insufferable by Mark Waid and Pete Krause. They're not cheap. You can get, like, I don't know what we call them, facsimile editions of the first issues and some gold variants and blah, blah, blah. But to get to the actual, you can get the whole digital library for $65. If you want the standard set with digital, it's at least $120. 3 big hardcovers, which for what we buy with omnibuses is a pretty damn good deal. And it's going now as, let me get to the top of the page here. It's got about 17 days to go as of this podcast, so you got plenty of time. Just go to Kickstarter, look for the complete irredeemable deluxe library. Tell them Kray sent you. No, they're not gonna listen to that. I mentioned earlier that I took my folks to go see the Saints game. A lot of fun. Minor league team. It's our AAA minor league team that feeds to the Twins. The Toledo Mud Hens feed to the Detroit Tigers. A doubleheader because yesterday, well, it's Thursday today. I went Wednesday, but on Tuesday we had thunderstorms rip through, so they had to cancel the game. So they fast forward because when we got there at about 5:30, the game was going, and I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense. Why is the game going on? And then I realized, oh, they're playing yesterday's game or finishing it, and then they played a 7-inning game for tonight's game. And as usual, there's tons of craft beers, there's tons of things to eat and do. Just a lot of fun. My folks had a good time. They'd never been there before. The stadium's absolutely beautiful in downtown St. Paul. So if you got a minor league stadium around you, you should check it out because those kids, they want to play baseball. That's the other thing that's weird is looking at these kids. You know, they're all in their 20s, and I'm like, what was I doing when I was 20? I was in college just waiting for new comic book day. Speaking of new comics, I went geeking, as I was saying. And this one was kind of fun because my daughter gave me a call and said, Dad, do you want to go geeking? Again, this is Holly. Dana's out in Reno, of course. And I'm like, my original plans were to just, remember that 740 books I bought for $1 piece? I was going to go delve into that all day. But I thought, you know what? Let's do it. How often is she free? How often does she have money to do it? Not that it matters because I tend to buy it anyways. So we got together. We took off. We only visited 2 stores because she had to get to work or meet up with her boyfriend. I don't know. We went to Dreamhaven. The very damn fine, handsome man, Greg Ketter, was there. Talked with him a bit. Let's see, what did I end up buying there? Oh, here it is. Let's see. I got Flaming Carrot Comics Omnibus. He had it discounted. My daughter bought the Complete Bone softcover for $20, which was a great price. Let's see, a couple other comics. I picked up an issue of Beautiful Stories for Ugly Children, one that I've never read before, for $3. Don't laugh at me, Cory. I picked up Super Boxers by Ron Wilson. I probably would not have picked this up for anything less than $3 because I recall reading it thinking, but I picked it up anyways. Picked up a couple other books. There was a brief moment where I told Cory, Dad's going back in the adult area. All right. Something you shouldn't have to tell your kids. But so we had a fun time there. Next stop and the final stop we went to was go see Cedar Cliff, our good buddy down there. And Steve is just funny because I came in and I told Steve, this is my daughter, Holly. And he goes, oh, yeah, I own the place. I'm an asshole, by the way. It was kind of funny. Because, Steve knows I dig him and stuff. And it was fun. Steve was ranting a bit, talking a lot about the Phantom Stranger Omnibus, how it's being canceled. He's being told it's because of DC paper shortage. He did have some more omnibuses. I picked up the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol Omnibus, which I've had my eye on for a while. And, I looked on the eBays and I was like, well, for the price he had it and the price they wanted with shipping, I give my money to Steve. I picked up, we were talking about this, I think a podcast or so ago, Mike Deodato Jr.'s Marvel Visionaries for the Mighty Thor. And again, I don't know if I have these or not, but his prices are usually so cheap, I don't mind. And I picked up a couple other issues, including one called Pat Sullivan's Felix the Cat from 1953. I always laugh when I see Felix the Cat because I remember my ma had a 45 of Felix the Cat that I loved. That it was Felix the Cat, a wonderful, wonderful cat. And it goes on and on. I'm sure you can YouTube it to find it. But we played that 45 till it don't play no more. Let's see, what else did I pick up here? Yeah, he's always got a ton of comics. I pick them up, I read them, I put them on eBay. Holly, I should mention, at Dreamhaven, picked up all of the Ray Bradbury trade paperbacks they had. She's on a Ray Bradbury kick, which I think is fabulous. She also picked up from Steve Brown, because he gave her for $20 the annotated Sandman Volume 1.
Ooh.
Yeah, and what was funny is she saw the American Gods annotated at Dreamhaven, but didn't pick it up. And then she was thinking about it, and of course my daughter is an Amazon child. She always buys things through Amazon. And she looked it up, and the American Gods one was $15. And then when I stopped the car, I looked it up, and I said, that's got to be a Prime Day special. So she just bought it through that for $15. And then she turned around and got the Sandman annotated, which was brilliant. So we had a great time. It was fun just geeking, a lot of talking. And next week I'll tell you about the donut shop that we stopped at, because I left the box upstairs. Otherwise, I'd have been eating donuts the whole time here. My friend over at Cinema Judge, Jeff, again, cinemajudge.buzzspot.com, or just Google Cinema Judge, has an episode up. His latest one is Thor, Love and Thunder, with interviews with Chris Helmsworth, Natalie Portman, Tessa Thompson, Chris Pratt, Karen Gillian, and movie clips. So check it out. You can get his podcast just like ours. He's got it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and you can go back and look at all his other ones. Like I said, he did Thor, Love, and Thunder last week, Minions, The Rise of Gru, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Lightyear. He's able to get interviews, incorporate it with all sorts of things. I told him anytime you got a comic book one, let me know, and I'll mention it here for our friends. Do you want me to break in to do the shows now, as long as I'm on a roll?
Sure.
Okay, I'll do at the end of my geeking, I'll do the comic shows, because we've got some, and there's a new one up. I'm not going to tell you what it is. First, I'm going to mention, if this podcast drops when it can, it will
be on the 20th of July.
So the next day up at Granite City Comics, Ali Garza will be there. So you can come up there and see Artist Elite founder and artist from 3 to 6 p.m. And I'm not sure if I'm going, because usually at 6 p.m. we're doing this here podcast. So on the 24th is Minnesota Toy Posse Independence Sale out at the Eagle 34, 2507 East 25th Street in Minneapolis. They got indoor vendors, they got outdoor vendors. Hopefully the weather holds. Knock on particle board. It's free to get in, 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. I always go. I try to get there right away at 9, because then I got to go to work. On the 30th of July, South Minneapolis Comic Book Crawl. This is the second annual one. What they do is they have a ton of locations set up, including shops that Cory and I have talked about in the past. Wizard Wax, Nostalgia Zone, Heroic Goods and Games, Dreamer's Vault, Dreamhaven, as well as the mysterious Hot Comics and Collectibles, as well as dealers who are just probably setting up in their driveway. Dealers 1 and 2, like here, they got 2 separate dealers who do silver and modern age. Go to comicvikings.com for more information. And I work that Saturday, so I'm out. But who knows? You might see Cory out there crawling. I know if I could go, I definitely want to get to Nostalgia Zone and Wizard Wax. But I'm also would love to see some of just those dealers. Like there's one dealer, 5 and 6. They have classic comics from $1 up. Oh, you're killing me here. Maybe. No, I guess I can't fake that, because I really am sick. So a lot of fun stuff. If you got a show you want me to blurb, you know what to do. Contact us. Go back to the stuff Cory talked about. You know how to get a hold of us. And now, Cory, what you geeking on?
First thing, I saw Thor, Love and Thunder. I thought it was a lot of fun. I will say that I thought it was a little too jokey for the very serious subjects that were brought up. But if that's my only complaint, I mean, I had so much fun watching the movie. And that's all I care about. Fun. Was it fun? Yeah, it was fun. Cool. It was worth my time. It was worth going to the theater for. And then I went with my foster daughter, Evelyn, and she is in her 30s now, which depresses me to no end. So afterward, we weren't really hungry enough to go out to eat, but this was at a theater that had a bar. So we sat at the
Ooh,
bar. We ordered some bar food. I had the most wonderful gin gimlet I have had in years because it was the first gin gimlet I have had in years. I love me my gin gimlets. That was my drink when I was the happy hour guy. I had the job where every Friday I would get dragged to happy hour, and it was that would be my drink, a gin gimlet. But I really enjoyed that. I have not had a whole lot of time for much of anything other than work this last week or so. But I have let the group home know that I am cutting back from 3 evenings and a weekend shift to 2 evenings and a weekend shift. Because I'm got a birthday coming up, and I've looked at it and I said, I'm getting tired. Maybe if I'm not at work all the time, I won't be as tired. I also would like to have my Friday nights where I could, just, I'm done with work for the week, rather than, okay, work's done for the week. I got to get in the car and I got to go to the group home. And this is the night when there's no other staff than me and I'm going to be busy. And then, blah. And then by the time I get home, I'm just collapse and fall into a puddle on the floor. But, Joe, we have a question. It did not come into the podcast. It came in over at pwinsiderelite.com from Diego Duran, but I believe he listens to this show as well. Now, I answered it over there. I'd like to get your answer over here. Joe, when did you know that Wolverine was going to be a breakout character in the X-Men?
all right, Wolverine. My guess would be when I started seeing Wolverine appearances going up in value. Remember, I didn't pick up on X-Men until 138. So it wasn't a short time until I was able to buy the Frank Miller, Chris Claremont miniseries, which sold like crazy. And of course, by that time, I think I had picked up my first appearance of Wolverine for like a mere $20. Oh my God, $20! And the Marvel value stamp was out of it. I got ripped. Wish I still had it. That's probably when I think I noticed it was going up. And then you had a really bad story with Wolverine in Tales Marvel Team Up. He was with Spider-Man, which followed again the next issue of Wolverine and Professor X, or I think it was Spider-Man Professor X, and Wolverine basically brought Spider-Man into the danger room and was busy doing a workout, and which Spider-Man doesn't really, Wolverine's having a great time. Spider-Man's kind of like, this isn't fun. And then when Professor X shows up, he says, I think you should have asked your guest if he was having a good time. He goes, well, not really. And Wolverine kind of looks over and said, she should have just said so, Webbs. Again,
That's
kind of
why I liked Wolverine back in the day.
Yeah.
Every so often it's, your gloves pop out of your hands. We thought that was part of your gloves. Why didn't you tell us? You didn't ask.
Yeah. Logan, that's your name? We never knew. You never asked. Yeah, it was just brilliant. But that's kind of when it happened. I was late on the train for the whole X-Men thing. I was able to get back. I think I got as far back as 109. And what was the first appearance of, what do they call him, Major Maple Leaf?
Yes.
Was that 109 or 103? No, that was 109.
Yeah, it was 109 because 108 was Byrne's first issue wrapping up the Makaran Crystal.
I might have gotten a 108 as well, maybe a 104. Gruber let me read his run, so I was able to catch up real fast. And I've never owned a giant size X-Men. And Pat, years ago, my mom asked him, could I help me buy a back issue for me? And he had my mom buy an Uncanny X-Men 94, which, again, over the years I stupidly sold. But, so yeah, I was aware of Wolverine. I think that's when I started realizing that Wolverine was kind of the breakaway star, because it always seemed like everybody was leaning towards Wolverine. Definitely when Wolverine Kitty Pryde came out, which I didn't like at all. It rereads okay, but boy, when it came out, I was like, ugh. So that's pretty much it. I think by that time, I think Wolverine was kind of a breakaway character, because it was just back then you would notice like, oh, this character's hot. Well, let's find all of his appearances. Well, up until then, his only appearances were really in X-Men. First appearance, Hulk 180. First story, 181. He was in Iron Fist. Was it 14? I think. No, 15. The weird crossover where he's wearing Fang's outfit. So there wasn't really a lot of back issues to pick up. But then he just started popping up everywhere, if you forgive the pun.
Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half.
Which, thanks to the incompetence of DC Marvel, is about a half hour less than a preview show usually goes.
Well, the truth is it's 2.5 hours, but I'm used to saying an hour and a half.
Okay.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better, and the comic that you like the most. Joe?
They say gin can damage your short-term memory. If that's the case, just imagine what gin can do. I tried to say no to gin, but it's 42.5% stronger than me.
You know, they say marijuana affects your short-term memory. What was I talking about?
You were saying how much you love water, especially when it's frozen in cubes and surrounded by gin.
And lime juice. You're not going to say it, are you?
No.
Why don't you say hit my music?
I was going to say Charles Dickens walks into a bar, goes, a martini, please. Bartender says, olive or twist? Okay, now you can hit my music.